When we think of India, we picture familiar images. Poverty, caste, squalor. A land once ruled by Britain, still shadowed by poverty today. Yet, at a wedding in 2024, pop stars Rihanna and Justin Bieber performed, while Meta's Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates sat side by side. The cost of that single wedding reportedly exceeded $740 million. The stage for this spectacle? None other than India. In the very same city, one side hosts a billion-dollar wedding, while the other sleeps on a dirt floor with a blanket. Why, in this vast nation, do the 21st century and Middle Ages coexist? Today, we tell the story of an India where wealth meets poverty face to face. First, let's look at India's other face. As of 2026, India's population is approximately 1.5 billion. About 17.8% of the world's population is accounted for by India alone. China, long holding the top position, entered population decline in the early 2020s. Around 2023, India took that position. The gap between the two nations is projected to widen further. It's not merely about large numbers. India's median age is 29.2, while China's is 40.6, considering Japan's median age is around 50. This means it has an overwhelmingly young population. This contrasts starkly with East Asia, already deep into an aging population. The world's largest and youngest market, causing foreign companies to eye India keenly. This is the first reason. Supporting this population, there's another pillar: its academic fervor. Its pinnacle is the Indian Institutes of Technology. Established by the government to train engineers, it's India's most prestigious university. It's also known as the setting for the movie 3 Idiots. Indians who graduated from here moved to Silicon Valley in the US, eventually rising to top executive positions at global IT giants like Google and Microsoft. Student suicides from academic pressure have become a social crisis. Education here is pursued with near religious intensity. And it's not only about population. India is already a nuclear power, with the world's 4th strongest military. The US sees India as a key ally to counter China, and for a very good reason. India and China constantly clash at their border, which is in the same context. Another key factor is at play. The consumer-driven middle class now exceeds 100 million. South Korea's Samsung has already shifted its mobile phone factory focus from China to India. And in the Indian market, it surpassed Chinese brand Xiaomi to claim the top spot. At this point, one truth must be admitted. India is not merely a poor country, it is one of the 21st century's greatest lands of opportunity. But where the light is strongest, the shadows grow deepest. In this land of potential, how far can wealth stretch? Meet Mukesh Ambani, the chairman of Reliance Industries, India's largest conglomerate and the wealthiest man in Asia. The scale of his family is best seen in their weddings. First, in 2018, the wedding of their eldest daughter, Isha Ambani, captured the world's attention. The total cost, close to $100 million. Global superstar Beyoncé flew to India for a performance, with former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Samsung's Lee Jae-yong on the star-studded guest list. Private jets carrying guests from around the world numbered over 100. And that alone would leave you speechless. But the story doesn't end there. 6 years later, in 2024, youngest son Anant Ambani's wedding completely eclipsed that record. Total estimated budget, from $600 million to over $1 billion. After a long hiatus, Rihanna took the stage. Justin Bieber reportedly earned roughly $10 million for his appearance alone. Katy Perry joined the lineup as well. Among guests were Meta's Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, and Disney CEO Bob Iger, seated side by side. For a single wedding, pre-events alone stretched across 5 months. They chartered a full Mediterranean cruise for a party at sea. The irony? This wedding was far more than mere extravagance. Bringing together global tech CEOs and heads of state in one place, it became the Ambanis' global diplomatic stage. and a massive soft power project, etching India's rise into the world's memory. The family-owned telecom, Reliance Jio, live-streamed every moment on its own platform, showcasing the infrastructure that unites 1.4 billion people. This was no mere tycoon's party. Wealth itself is becoming an instrument of national diplomacy. The Ambani home is even more striking. Its name, Antilia, the world's second most expensive private residence. Not a sprawling mansion, but a single 27-story building. Staffed by 600 workers with 10 elevators and round-the-clock security. So what about the poor living in the same city? The homes of the Shudra, the lowest caste, have low ceilings. One must stoop to step inside. A low class must live under low roofs, an unspoken rule. There is no flooring. People lay a single blanket on the bare earth to sleep. For the Dalits, those outside the caste system, homes fall another step. They are tents. Some have no steel frames, only branches gathered and bent by hand. And shelter is not the only problem. In the slums, clean water is hard to find. When water is scarce, people sometimes die from disputes over a single bucket. Sewage systems cannot keep up, so contaminated water now outnumbers the clean. Many villages have no electricity. No internet, no television, no smartphones. They remain entirely cut off from the flow of information. Without toilets, many relieve themselves outdoors, and women who do so often fall victim to sexual violence. Healthcare is simply out of reach. In rural hospitals, assigned doctors often fail to appear at all, a routine occurrence. Under the same sky, some attend billion-dollar weddings, while another loses their life over a single bucket of water. Where on earth did this divide begin? India was not always a poor country. Home to the Indus, one of 4 great ancient civilizations, a rich land of fertile soil and prized spices. Europeans who coveted this wealth sought new sea routes to India. Along the way, Columbus stumbled upon the Americas and mistook them for India. It's why Native Americans are still called Indians today. India's true turning point came with the arrival of the British. For over 2 centuries, Britain ruled India and drained its resources. In that time, India sank into chronic poverty. But the true horror of British rule wasn't the plunder itself. To rule hundreds of millions with only a handful of British, they had only one option: divide the people. Their first target was the caste system. At the bottom sat the Shudra. Below even them were the Dalits, cast outside the system entirely. The most despised of all. Britain saw this buried resentment, so they granted the Dalits select privileges, deliberately driving a wedge between them and other castes. To stop the weak from uniting, they built one more wall between them. Britain did not stop there. They also instigated religious divisions. Islam had taken root in India around the 12th century. Hinduism, a polytheistic faith, was naturally tolerant of others, and the 2 religions coexisted peacefully for centuries. But when Britain began deliberately favoring Muslims, a rift opened between Hindus and Muslims. By the time Britain withdrew, Muslims had lost their protector. To survive in a Hindu-majority India, they chose to form their own nation. That nation, carved out of India, was Pakistan. Enemies from birth, they still face each other with nuclear arms, clashing at the border to this day. And the way China today partners with Pakistan to contain India, that too runs on the lines Britain drew 2 centuries ago. One man stood against this divide and rule, the legendary Mahatma Gandhi. He shook Britain with nonviolent resistance and insisted above all that Hindus and Muslims must never split apart. Yet for calling to embrace Muslims, he was assassinated by a fellow Hindu. One notable coincidence is the day the Republic of Korea was liberated from Japan was August 15, 1945, and the day India gained independence from Britain was August 15, 1947. Same date, different fates. Yet both nations carried colonial scars, facing a new starting line. When Britain left, India stepped onto freedom's road, but its first lane was socialism. Key industries and finance were nationalized. Government intervened deeply in the market. Growth rates stagnated in the 2% range. For 40 years, India dutifully walked the path of poverty. Indian politics in this era was led by the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty, a political lineage in which power passed quietly from parent to child. Of course, there were achievements. The IIT mentioned earlier, the Indian Institutes of Technology, was founded then. Chronic hunger, too, was significantly reduced. But as the economy collapsed, public discontent grew. To suppress it, the government played the same card Britain once had: division. If the Shudra and Dalit united, their numbers would be massive. If the poor rose as one, no regime could survive. So the government drove a wedge between the two groups. The result, instead of rising together, they spent their strength holding each other down. Religious division continued behind the scenes. Look at the map of that era and a curious fact emerges. Pakistan, split from India, was itself divided in two: West Pakistan and East Pakistan. Hardline Muslims lived in the west, moderates in the east. Separated by vast distance, the two regions went to war. India backed East Pakistan, and a new nation was born. This was Bangladesh. Through this, India's government successfully painted hardline Muslims as the national enemy, stoking Hindu grievances and cementing its own power further. Even as the economy plunged, the regime held its seat, a strange equilibrium. Only after 40 years did India set aside socialism and shift lanes to neoliberalism. Growth rates leapt from 2% to 7%. But politically, little had changed. Splitting castes and religions, fanning the flames of factional conflict, the colonial blueprint still runs in the hands of domestic politicians. So, one final question remains. After 30 years of capitalism, why has India's wealth gap not narrowed, but deepened? The answer lies in a familiar place. We have seen this picture before. Right next door in China, as global factories chased cheap labor and flocked to China, capitalists built vast fortunes on one side, while on the other, workers took home pitiful wages. The same story is now repeating in India. Aging and rising wages are driving factories out of China, and India is the new destination. The ladder of wealth is growing steeper. Add to that the gap in information. Children of the rural lower classes rarely cross a school's threshold, and internet doesn't reach them. How people live in other lands, how strange their own caste system really is. They have no path to learn it. Occupational inheritance also persists. The law bans caste discrimination, but reality tells a different story. Laundry, cleaning, butchering, corpse handling still fall to the Dalits. Poverty breeds poverty, and division breeds division. On the blueprint the British drew 2 centuries ago, India still circles the same room. There are, of course, signs of change. The CEOs of Google and Microsoft are both Indian, both IIT graduates, and more from lower castes are entering the middle class. But for a population of 1.47 billion to keep up with that pace, the wealth gap is widening far too fast. The India of wealth and the India of hunger share a sky, yet seem to live in different centuries. Will the two Indias ever meet in the same time, or remain forever parallel? The answer lies not in billion-dollar fortunes, but in the unnamed, unrecorded hands of 1.47 billion people, one by one.